Welcome everyone. My name is Steve Zatarain. I'm an admissions counselor at Middlebury College. Thank you all for being here for our fourth Wednesday webinar. This is the Student Life webinar. And this is a webinar that's near and dear to my heart as someone who is formerly part of Student Life. So I'm excited to welcome you all. We will have a chance to talk about different parts of student life. Up top, I'd like to put out that student life is a very broad topic, and there's lots of information, lots of different pieces there. And we have some amazing experts who have joined us who will have a chance to share their experiences and their roles on campus and how they've plugged into student life. But I want to recognize that we won't be able to cover everything. So we will have a chance to do some questions and answers after we go around introducing ourselves and the ways in which we've been involved with student life. But I also want to recognize we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but I'm inviting y'all to please provide your questions in the Q&A box in the feature here. We'll attempt to respond to those both in a combination of live, so from the panelists, and also from a couple of folks who are working behind the scenes. So you'll see a few written responses as well. But yeah, so I'm excited to talk to y'all a little bit about student life. As I mentioned, this is near to me because formerly, before my role in admissions, I worked as a residential director, working closely with folks as a living staff person. And I've seen all the amazing work that all these folks who will be talking today have plugged in, been involved with, or somehow involved in supporting our students on campus. So I'm excited to kind of get involved and hear what people have to say about the various ways that folks are engaging in student life. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say before we get started. And I'm hoping that you are challenging yourselves and asking vulnerable questions, because really we're hoping to get to all those questions as possible, because what you put into this is what you're gonna get. So to kind of kick us off in talking about student life, I'd like to introduce Matt Longman. Matt.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Longman. I'm one of the student deans at Middlebury, and it's an honor to have a chance to share some time with you this afternoon. A little bit about myself personally. I actually attended Middlebury long ago in a galaxy called the 1980s, and I've been a dean at Middlebury for the past 25 years. And it's really an honor to have a chance to support and work with our amazing students here at the college. It's also an honor to work with the fantastic array of colleagues, including both staff and faculty members, whom I have the chance to share in close work with every day. I'm going to tell you just briefly about the student life dean position at the college, because it is fairly unique, I think. When you look at other schools, I don't think a lot of other schools necessarily have what we have. But just to explain, there are 4 student life deans, and when you matriculate at Middlebury College, you are assigned to one of the 4 deans, and that's a relationship that you will sustain for all of your time at the college and beyond. And I say and beyond because one of the absolute joys of my life is I'm in touch with many alums who are now 20 years out of Middlebury, and I'm still able to support them, listen, follow them in their amazing journeys, and sometimes write really good letters of recommendation for their grad school applications, or serve as a reference. But what I would like to share with you as you're thinking about Middlebury is what I emphasized before is this is an amazing community of people who are truly dedicated to the work that they're doing. I am honored every day to work with the amazing array of colleagues that I work with. And part of the role of the dean, students will meet with the dean personally. In these days, it's taking place a lot via Zoom and phone call or email. But however the communication starts, my primary role is to bring active, compassionate listening to whatever a student is choosing to share with me. And then I'm very well versed in the array of resources the college has to support a student. So I can give you just a snapshot of the past 24 hours. I'm working with one student to help hopefully bolster his financial aid package. I'm talking with student athletes whose seasons have just been canceled, and they're trying to figure out whether they're going to come to Middlebury at all, whether they might declare remote learner status. I'm in touch with students overseas who are concerned that their embassy might not open and they might not be able to come to Middlebury. My role is essentially to bring close, caring, listening, and attention to each individual student, and to make sure that that student is going to get the full support of the institution as best as it can offer it. I also want to give a shout out to our faculty members. And whereas at a lot of other college campuses, I think there is a real divide between student life or student affairs and faculty. At Middlebury, we truly have a collaborative culture here. And one of the joys of my typical working day during the academic year is I'll be working with a student who has met with a really challenging circumstance. And that student really needs some real support and understanding, and sometimes even some academic relief from what the academic schedule for that day or that week might suggest. And as a dean, I'm often able to help convey that to the faculty members of that student without having to disclose the particulars of what the student is dealing with. And in every case that I can recollect from last year, whenever I've reached out in support of one of my students, the response from the faculty members has been compassionate, fair, supportive, and the students have been provided with a really needed and timely flex in their schedule. So I guess that's all I'm going to say for now, but thank you all for joining us. And I just want to say, finally, I appreciate that nothing feels quite normal right now to any of us, ourselves included. And I really appreciate that for you, the process of determining which institution is going to be your best fit. I think like everything right now, there's just a lot more complexity to that picture. So we all welcome the questions that you have for us, and we'll do our best to answer them as best as we can. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Matt. Appreciate that. I want to hone in on one piece that you shared, kind of linking us to our next panelist. Thinking about the layers of support, right? I think something that stands out to me about Middlebury are the layers of support. And I think a lot about the residential life team. So Francoise, do you mind kicking us off and telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. I actually just want to start by saying thank you for having me on this panel. I think one of my favorite things about being at Middlebury is just how supportive everyone is. And so being able to share my experience about that. I guess my name's Francoise Nijena. I'm a rising senior. A little bit scared about that and also excited, I guess. And I am doing a double major in neuroscience and psychology with a minor in education studies. I've served on the residential life team as a first-year counselor for the last 2 years. And that's been really, really important to me because I remember coming in my first year and just being so confused about everything and getting lost all the time, like finding my classes and, coming from a place where I'm not used to winter and everything. And I just felt like I had so much adjusting to do. But then I had a really supportive, I had 2 supportive FYCs or first year counselors on my hall. And also just like living with people who I felt like were really caring, but because we had first year counselors that really supported us in building a community. And I think one of my fondest memories, like towards at the beginning of winter, I obviously was still learning to like find the right winter gear and all that. And then I think I was coming from class and I get to my room and on my door, there was like a winter hat and winter gloves. And those were from the people in my hall and my first year counselors. So it just made me cry. I was like, this is so nice. Just like being in a community where people genuinely care about you. And then I remember, I think when we're doing class registrations, I think my computer died or something like that. And I couldn't, like I was struggling with registering for classes. And it was like 6 a.m. But I ran to my first year counselor. I was like, I really need help. My computer crashed. And he had to wake up and help me register for my classes. So for me, having experiences like that really inspired me to want to do the same for, other incoming first years. And so it's just really been an honor, like being able to live with my residents and help them in navigating, college and finding the resources that they need and organizing community building activities and seeing them become friends. So that's, been a huge part of my experience at Middlebury. And then I've also been involved in, I guess, like other student life activities, like student clubs. So I've been involved with Language in Motion, that is a language and culture exchange program with the community schools. And also a change maker at the Center of Creativity and Innovation. I'm also a Bold Scholar, a Bold Women Scholar. And I also co-founded a student organization, Middle Ground, that is just kind of brings together people from like different backgrounds, different cultures to share and learn from each other. But yeah, I'm really excited to be part of today's panel.
Awesome. Francois, just really quickly, can you describe what being a bold scholar means?
Yes. So every year, a group of, I think, about 7 or 8 girls that show passion in like leadership, community engagement are selected. And we have access to funding to do all kinds of like innovative projects if we want to, or we meet other women leaders. And so it's supposed to be like personal development, leadership development program too, as well as getting access to like funding and other resources that we need in order to thrive.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you sharing that. So when I think a lot about student life is just like how multifaceted it is, right? There's different pieces there. There's different pieces that students are walking to campus with and thinking about. I know something that I see many students I worked with were thinking hard about, how can I be supported in different realms when I'm going to a new place that looks very different from the place I grew up with? Or, how do I find community again or engage one more time in a new and distinct way that feels meaningful for me when I'm thinking about the college, university, I'm thinking hard about considering. So I'd like to invite Saifa to talk a little bit about, your role on campus, the role of supporting students, maybe a little bit about the Scott Center.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for, I'm thankful to being here. And my full name is Saifa Hussain. I work as a Muslim chaplain and interfaith advisor. And I work under the Scott Center for Spiritual and Religious Life. It's an office right next to the admissions, actually. Essentially, chaplaincy, people always ask, what is a chaplain? What do chaplains do exactly? No one can quite figure it out. But we're basically caregivers, we're ritual leaders, we're advocates. And so the Scott Center, tries to create an atmosphere that's open to religious faith or spiritual practice, or even just personal growth that not necessarily has to do much with religion or spirituality. In fact, secular worldviews are included in the umbrella of interfaith. So what chaplains do is pastoral care and counseling. So that means helping, talking to people that might be dealing with emergent issues like grief, crisis, illness, but even just having friendly conversations. And what we're different from counselors in that we can follow up with students, whereas a counselor, there's a little bit more, there are some formalities and strict delineations of when and where you can talk to people. But with chaplains, it's a little bit more casual. And so we have different programming. We have weekly programming like tea time, where we just have tea. And the whole point of it is to not do anything except have tea. It's kind of creating a counterculture to the culture of busyness, just being present, just chilling with each other. And we also have weekly meditations. And then we oversee student religious organizations or student spiritual organizations. So I work closely with the Muslim student organization on campus, the MSA. And we have a plethora of religious and spiritual organizations, various Christian groups, a Jewish group, a Buddhist group, a couple of contemplative practice groups, et cetera, et cetera. And we also, I work as an advisor to the Mosaic Interfaith House. So the Interfaith House is essentially an intentional community on campus. It's a special interest house, which you know, some of you might have questions or are learning about, but you know, basically you live together kind of you know, with a certain intention in mind. And ours, the Mosaic House, is about living with people of different worldviews. So we have people of various religious backgrounds, secular backgrounds, living together under one roof, sharing space, and we meet once a week talking about important issues, but also even just figuring out, you know, what kind of food is gonna be allowed in the kitchen and what works for everyone, and just kind of setting community standards. And I'm really pleased we have a former resident at the Interfaith House, Chima, who I'll invite to, hopefully we'll speak a little bit more about that and other programming at the Scott Center.
Thank you. Yeah, hi, my name is Chima Demba. I'm a senior this fall, and I'm a psychology major. And I lived in the Interfaith House last year, and I'm going to speak a little about Special Interest House and the Mosaic House. So the Interfaith House was a group that you selected to be into, so you applied to live there. So everyone that lived there intentionally chose to live with each other, to have a diverse range of cultures combining into one. And I think one of the greatest parts about it was there was a conscious community where people were so diverse, and bringing that all together, differences were welcomed, and it was a genuine family where we came in not really knowing a lot of people there, and we left caring deeply and actually asking, you know, how are you, good or bad? And you would sit and talk about things. It was really, it demonstrates the type of community I think we have at Middlebury, where people care about what you're doing. People care about how you're doing. People are supportive. At our house, we'd visit each other's plays and activities and sporting events. We'd work out together. Our big thing was cooking. We would eat a lot of food that we'd make together, just sharing in community, and do homework together. And it's something small that when you leave home, you're looking for that community, you're looking for your new home and new people to build into that. And Interfaith House is one example of a type of community that fosters that type of positive environment. I'm also just involved with kind of everything the Scott Center has to offer. I think something I walked into the living room of the Scott Center, which is like this beautiful old home and has a fireplace, and it's just a very comforting place where you can be yourself, and the other people there are really just kind, genuine people that you'll see like anywhere on campus, but it's nice to have a designated space for conscious dialogue and love and support. And there are also things like meditation Wednesdays, where it's like a pause in between the middle of the week and the middle of the day, to reflect and to listen to poetry, or someone sometimes plays music, bringing in joys and concerns and lighting them. We have a little candle, and people just are present in different ways than the busyness and the hard work that Middlebury is known for, but it's also nice to see the softer underbelly that Middlebury really develops, that people are there to support each other and hear about each other and lift each other up.
Thank you so much. I think you captured something that's very difficult to put into words. So thank you so much, Shima. I really appreciate that. Looking ahead, something people are always thinking about is, how do I start my college experience? Where does that begin? So I'm going to invite Christy to talk a little bit about your role on campus.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here. As Steve said, my name's Christy Carpenter. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am the Assistant Director for Residential Life, with a focus on new student experiences and residential education. This is heading into my 4th year here at Mid, so I guess this is my senior year that I'll be starting here. Excited, nervous, all of the above. No, so for me, I also, like Steve, previously served as a residence director. So one of the professional staff members that lives on campus, works really closely with students and student support, and that like direct connection between folks and building community. And so for me in my new role, a big part of it is, I think, collaboration across departments with different teams, working really closely with our orientation team and mid-view folks to really help folks start off on the right foot. And I think about what drew me to residence life in the beginning, both as a student and then eventually as a professional staff member, is looking for that connection, looking for that sense of community. I know when I went to college, I was like, how do you do this? There is no how to college, and kind of understanding a lot of the resources and things that were there. For me, I found those answers. I found that support often in mentors, like peer mentors, upperclassmen that took me under their wing, explained like how the dining hall works, where to find affordable books, all of that stuff. And so I think a lot of what we do within residence life and also setting that up from the start in orientation is really building that connection and creating opportunities for folks to get to know each other, to get to explore themselves a little bit and who they are and who they want to be when they're coming into a new community. But also creating those mentorship roles, whether it's with your mid-view or orientation leaders. So getting that firsthand knowledge from folks who've been there, who've been in your place, who are navigating being away from home for the first time, or maybe many times. How do you make new friends? Maybe you haven't had to do that since you entered school. And so a lot of those things that I think are skills, but things that we don't always think about or we don't learn in a classroom. And so I think within orientation, we build in and create opportunities for folks to connect, to reflect, and hopefully build some of those lifelong relationships, and explore Middlebury and what it has to offer. And kind of in my other realm of Res Life, we do that work kind of picking up where orientation leaders lay that foundation and thinking about how do we continue that? What does that look like in floors with our awesome FYCs, so our first year counselors? How do our RDs or our residence directors create opportunities for folks to get to know each other, maybe step outside their comfort zone, maybe learn some things that they haven't had to. So I think Res Life is often a little bit of a catch-all, like we're here if you have any sort of question, much like the deans as well. Our residential life staff professionals and Res Life staffers are within first year communities, and all of our communities really, but offices are within first year communities. So it's always a place if you have a simple question like, how do you do laundry? Or something bigger, like how do I email a professor about, to ask about an extension? I'm just not sure. So it's a little bit of everything, but our goal is to really be there and help provide that support, to walk you through it, to help you build those skills. So that way, eventually you might be in that role as a peer leader, helping other folks, new students in our community do that as well. So I think Res Life, I think about it as a lot of being that connector. We're part of the larger support network here at campus, but we're also understanding what folks need and how do we best support them and get them connected or plugged into other activities, other resources on campus, things that will fuel their passions and their development, both personally and I think interpersonally within our community.
Thank you, Christy. And Alex, kind of round it out with you. Can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with student life right now?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here today in the Zoom world. A little bit about myself real quick. I am Alex Jem. I use he, him pronouns. I am from Hastings-on-Hudson, New York. I am going to be a senior this year, as scary as it is to say that. And on campus, I'm involved in certain activities, club tennis. I'm a tour guide. Over the winter time, I'm a snowboard instructor. I'm pretty involved with the mountain club. In terms of academics, I am studying molecular biology and biochemistry and minoring in French, and I'm on the pre-med track. But this summer, I've been interning as one of our mid-view interns, and mid-view is another name for orientation. So I've been in a lot of Zoom meetings with Christy, who was just speaking, and we've just been working really hard to create a really fun orientation program to welcome you all to school this fall or in February. And something that's been really exciting for me this summer is that obviously it's been challenging because everything is so different. But everybody's really embraced that challenge and everybody's still really excited. the team that we work together with is a lot of staff members, but also students as well. And so it's really cool to be in a meeting where people whose job is to design orientation turn to a student and say like, hey, what do you think about this idea? What's the student perspective on that? So it's really great to have this interaction between both real adults and students working together to design orientation. And something else that I love about orientation that's come through this summer is just how stoked leaders are. We usually have about 120-ish or maybe even more leaders who volunteer each year. They're returning students and they had a lot of fun during orientation and they want to welcome all of you to school. And so we've been in touch with them throughout the summer, and it's so fun to see how excited they are to get to know all of you. And you don't know them yet, they don't know you yet, but they're so excited to welcome new students to Middlebury. And so that makes working for orientation really fun for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you sharing that. And people are so excited to welcome the new class. All right, with that, I'm gonna give us a couple seconds to take a breather before we transition into the question and answer portion. I just wanna say thank you to all the folks who, thank you to all the folks who were here as panelists. I just wanna put up everyone's names to recognize folks. Thank y'all so much, we really appreciate it. So